Now, to anybody listening to this, I'm thinking, what? What's the problem with calling your room a cell? It's a cell. You should be aware that you're incarcerated for doing something that isn't good, and we will rehabilitate you, but let's not soft-coat it and sugar-coat it. But what's your view?
I mean, my view is quite simple, really. Whether it's they call it a cell or they call it a room, the fact of the matter remains is that you are actually still in custody and you still have your liberties taken away from you. It's still a punishment. And, you're still away from family ties. So whether you decide to call it a prison cell or a room, it goes to the age-old saying of sticks and stones may break my bones. But the fact remains is that it's still a prison.
Well, they said that they would also ensure that you have all your family ties as well. So that's a new approach as well. Do you think that that's a better move rather than actually keeping people away from their families and isolating them?
To be fair, I mean, it's going to be a Category C prison. So in that instance, they've already been segregated from their families for a very long time, because you've got to remember these aren't people that have just committed a crime and gone straight into the prison. They've been to other prisons, and it's going to be, they're getting reintroduced back into society over time. So there may be Cat A prisoners that have gone through the system and now a Category B prisoner, and then now they're going to be a Category C prisoner. So they've been through the system, and we know that, look, we hope that the prison system works, and it has worked for me, but you've got to go through the system in order for it to be effective. And at this moment in time, well, that's what they're doing. So I'm all for it, to be fair.
Well, what about you then? So what's your story then? Because you were incarcerated. Can you tell us what it was for and how long you were there for?
Yes, I was guilty of murder through the controversial law of joint enterprise. And it still saddens me up to this day, the fact that somebody's lost their life. You know, I think about it every single day. And some of the postage notes that you'll probably see behind me is that I actually go around schools and colleges and work with youngsters and, work with youngsters, telling them about my story, highlighting the dangers of prison and crime, and doing my utmost to reduce the risk of offending and re-offending. I mean, inside prison, I walked out with 37 certificates and qualifications and 7 diplomas. And there's some dumbbells behind me as well, but that'll signify the fact that I own my own gym at this moment in time. And I've done this by developing the school, these certificates and qualifications that I've actually gained in prison.
I see. And how long were you in prison for?
I was given a life sentence with a minimum recommendation of 9 years. But I got released out in 7. I was fortunate enough to get my first parole based on what I've actually done in custody and how I've managed to utilise the qualifications that prisons offered, and even though sometimes the qualifications that they didn't offer, to then rehabilitate me and get me back into society. And now I want to spend my time in a constructive manner and teaching the things that I've actually learned in prison and the dangers of crime and prison, and hopefully helping the youth not do that going forward. Because in Doncaster, it was the bloodiest year to date. There was 4 murders, 20 stabbings, and I believe 7 rapes as well. So it's something close to my heart, and I want to do my utmost to give the information to our youngsters that prison is not the way. And there are better. You never underestimate the stupidity of one person in large groups.
No, I wouldn't at all. And so you would say that these things that they're changing, is this irrelevant though? Because you still managed to do well. You set up your own business. You've got everything going on in prison. You got the education that you needed to push forward in your life. So it did actually rehabilitate you. So do you think that these little tweaks here and there, like calling your cell a room and all of that, are actually a waste of time?
I mean, it's not a waste of time. For me, it worked. I mean, I had the go, I had the drive, and we've got to remember some of these prisoners, they come a life where they haven't got any support around them, whether that be from family support or relationship support. They haven't got that, and they've never had that, you see. So, building that confidence up and building that self-esteem up. And it's a good thing with that, the fact that, they've got a gym in there, because any successful person that I've either trained or worked with or spent some time with, from likes of Sir Richard Branson to John Caldwell, one thing all successful people have in common, and that is that they actually work out or they go to a gym. So I think that obviously tells us that there's all the positives of actually going to the gym and gaining experience and building yourself up and building your self-esteem up and your confidence up. And mental health's a huge thing these days. Everybody's got it. It's just some days you've got good mental health and some days you've got bad mental health. And one thing I know is that if I work out in the mornings, then and if something happens during the day, I'm able to tackle it in a much more better mental state.
Well, I mean, I'm like that. I quite like that myself as well. But and very, very briefly then, is this needed for the prison service then, this whole sort of kind of reform? Yes or no? Do you think it's needed?
It is needed because you've got to remember that they've actually been in other prisons before that. So then, for them to be slowly reintroduced back into society, then they've done their time. They need for them to be slowly reintroduced back into society. They're going through the system, and this is just a part of the system. Now, if you went from being a Category A prisoner to straight release after spending 20 years in prison, you haven't got the tools available. You've not got the skills available. You're going to get out, and you're going to go straight to the big wide world.
So you think this is a yes or no then? So yes. You'd say yes. I was just going to wrap up because I'm going to...
thumbs up. Thumbs up. I'm looking forward to be invited there to do a talk to the prisoners about motivation and mindset, for sure.
OK.